The Galactic Council had existed for 12 million years. In that time, they had seen species rise and fall like waves on an ocean. They had watched civilizations build great empires and then crumble to dust. They had observed countless wars, treaties, and periods of peace. But in all those millions of years, across thousands of species and billions of worlds, they had never seen anything quite like humanity. Ambassador stood before the massive viewing screen in the council chamber. His skin was pale with what could only be described as shock. Around him, representatives from 800 different species sat in stunned silence. The recording played again on the screen, showing what the humans had done to their own son. "This cannot be real," whispered Counselor Vinra, a being made of crystalline structures that hummed when she spoke. "No species would be foolish enough to tamper with their own star. It goes against every law of survival." But it was real. Every sensor, every probe, every observation satellite confirmed the impossible truth. The humans had turned their sun into a weapon. The story had begun 300 years ago, when humanity first made contact with the galaxy. They were a young species, barely capable of traveling between their own planets. The Council had watched them with mild interest, expecting them to follow the usual path of development. They would grow, learn the rules of galactic society, and eventually take their small place among the stars. But humans never followed the expected path. Within 50 years, they had reverse-engineered technology that took other species thousands of years to develop. Within a century, they had colonies on dozens of worlds. Within 2 centuries, they had become a significant power in their region of space. The other species watched with growing concern. There was something different about these creatures from the third planet of an ordinary yellow star. The Dominion was the first to try and stop them. They were ancient, powerful, and cruel. They had conquered hundreds of species over millions of years. When they looked at humanity, they saw nothing but another weak species to crush under their feet. The first invasion fleet arrived in the Sol system on a Tuesday morning, Earth time. There were 10,000 warships, each one capable of destroying a planet. The commander, a massive being with scales like armor and eyes like burning coal, sent his message to Earth. "Surrender your species to the Dominion. You will serve us as slaves. Your world will become our property. Resist, and we will burn your civilization to ash." The humans had only 500 ships to defend their home system. Their technology was impressive for such a young species, but it was nothing compared to the ancient might of the. Every calculation, every simulation showed the same result. Humanity would fall within hours. But Dr. Sarah had a different idea. She was 73 years old, with hair and eyes that had seen too many equations. For 40 years, she had worked on a project that everyone called impossible, a project that made other scientists laugh and shake their heads. She wanted to turn the sun itself into a weapon. "The math is simple," she had said in meeting after meeting, while the military leaders looked at her like she was insane. "Our sun produces more energy in 1 second than humanity has used in all of history. If we could direct even a tiny fraction of that energy, we could destroy anything." The problem was control. How do you control a ball of fire 1,000,000 times larger than your planet? How do you aim something that would vaporize anything you tried to build near it? How do you use a weapon that might destroy your own world in the process? Doctor had spent her entire life solving these problems. She had developed special satellites that could survive inside the sun's corona. She had created magnetic field generators that could shape plasma flows. She had designed targeting systems that could aim across millions of kilometers with perfect accuracy. And she had built the Helios array, 12,000 satellites arranged in a sphere around the sun, capable of focusing solar energy into a beam of pure destruction. It had taken 30 years to construct. It had cost more than most species spent in centuries, and almost everyone thought it would never work. But on that Tuesday morning, with 10,000 warships entering the solar system, Doctor finally got permission to try. The fleet was arranged in their standard invasion formation. Their shields were raised, but they were not worried. No weapon in the galaxy could penetrate shields. They had fought the greatest powers in existence and always won. Commander watched from his flagship as they approached the human. He could see the tiny human fleet assembling for a futile defense. He laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. "Pathetic creatures," he said to his officers. "They think their toy ships can stop us. Begin the bombardment. Let us show them what happens to species who refuse our generous offer." His weapons officer raised a clawed hand to give the order, but before he could speak, something strange happened. The sun flickered. At first thought his eyes were failing. Suns did not flicker. They burned with constant, reliable fury. But then it happened again, and again, and then the flickering stopped and something much worse began. A point of light appeared on the sun's surface. It was brighter than the rest of the star, impossibly bright, growing brighter every second. The sensors on the ship screamed warnings, energy readings that made no sense, temperature measurements that should not be possible. "What is happening?" demanded. His science officer's scales had gone pale. "Commander, the humans are. They are doing something to their star. They are focusing its energy. They are. I do not understand what I am seeing." The point of light on the sun grew brighter still, and then it moved. It shot across space faster than anything had ever seen. A beam of concentrated stellar energy, containing more power than 1,000 supernovas, traveling at nearly the speed of light. It struck the center of the formation. 3,000 ships vanished in an instant, not destroyed, not exploded, simply ceased to exist. The energy was so intense that even their atoms were torn apart. Watched in horror as the beam swept across his fleet. Ship after ship disappeared. The mightiest armada that had assembled in 1,000,000 years was being erased like dust wiped from a table. "Retreat," he screamed. "All ships retreat." But it was too late. The beam swept back across the formation. More ships vanished. The few that tried to flee found they could not outrun light itself. Within 17 minutes, the entire invasion fleet was gone. 10,000 warships, 2,000,000 warriors, erased from existence. On Earth, Dr. Sarah watched the readings from the Helios array and allowed herself a small smile. Her life's work had finally been proven. Humanity had done the impossible. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The young humans, the species everyone had dismissed as primitive and weak, had just destroyed the largest invasion fleet in galactic history, and they had done it with their own sun. Ambassador remembered the panic that had followed. Every species with aggressive intentions toward humanity suddenly reconsidered their plans. The Dominion, humiliated and terrified, sued for peace. Other hostile powers followed. But the fear had not faded with time. If anything, it had grown stronger as the full implications became clear. "You do not understand," told the Council now, his voice shaking. "Other species build weapons, they mine resources, they construct ships, but the humans, they looked at the fundamental forces of the universe and decided to weaponize them." Counselor Veenra's crystals hummed nervously. "It is just one star, impressive but not a threat to the wider galaxy." Shook his head slowly. "That is what we thought at first, but our intelligence operatives have been watching. The humans have not stopped. They have improved their technology, expanded it." He pressed a control, and new images appeared on the screen. Star after star, in system after system, each one now surrounded by the telltale network of satellites. They have built Helios arrays around every star in their territory. 47 stars, 47 stellar weapons, and they are still expanding. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Species that had not spoken in thousands of years were suddenly shouting at each other. Ancient enemies found themselves united in their fear of humanity. "We must stop them," cried a representative from the collective. If they can weaponize stars, what else will they weaponize? Black holes, nebulas, the fabric of space itself. And how do you propose we stop them? Asked quietly. Attack them. With what? We cannot get close enough to threaten their worlds without being destroyed by their star weapons. We cannot block their expansion without starting a war we cannot win. The chamber fell silent again. The terrible truth was sinking in. For the first time in 12 million years, the Galactic Council faced a species they could not control. On Earth, Dr. Sarah had died 10 years ago, honored as the greatest scientist in human history. But her work lived on. In research facilities across human space, new generations of scientists were building on her discoveries. They were finding new ways to harness stellar energy. New weapons, yes, but also new tools for construction, for exploration, for terraforming. Admiral James Washington stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked out at the stars. Each one was now a potential ally, a source of limitless energy, a weapon beyond imagination. He smiled. The galaxy thought we were too young to matter, he said to his officers. Too primitive, too weak. They watched us struggle out of our cradle and expected us to behave like good children. He turned to face them, his eyes bright with confidence. They did not understand. We humans do not accept limits. We do not follow the safe path. We see the impossible and ask ourselves how to make it possible. That is what makes us dangerous. That is what makes us human. In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador delivered his final report. The humans have a saying, he told the silent representatives. They say that necessity is the mother of invention. When faced with destruction, they did not surrender. They did not flee. They looked at their own sun and saw not a source of light and warmth, but the greatest weapon in existence. He paused, letting his words sink in. Other species see the universe as it is. Humans see the universe as it could be, as a tool, as a weapon, as something to be shaped to their will. That is why they terrify me. Not because of what they have done, but because of what they might do next. The recording ended. The council chamber remained silent for a long time, and somewhere, across the vast emptiness of space, humanity continued to reach for the stars, ready to turn each one into another weapon, another tool, another step on their endless journey to conquer the impossible. The galaxy had been warned, but deep in their hearts, every representative knew the truth. There was no stopping humanity now. There was only hoping that when the humans finally finished building their empire of weaponized stars, they would remember to be merciful. But then again, mercy had never been humanity's defining trait. Courage had, creativity had, and most of all, the sheer, beautiful madness of looking at the universe and refusing to accept any limits at all. The stars burned on, each one a potential weapon, each one a testament to the species that had been crazy enough to dream of controlling them. And somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, ancient powers stirred uneasily, wondering what humanity would weaponize next.